Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a fantastic day so far and that you had a great weekend. Just going to make sure that I adjust everything here and hopefully you can see me and hear me. Sometimes I have a little bit of problem with YouTube. And in fact, I'm going to jump into this right before I answer your questions. So if any of you were watching my video last time, I had a live video. We were talking about cuckold relationships, and it was great. We were having a great live session. I got cut off by Google. So, I mean, not by Google, by YouTube. I hopped back on and I actually did a 40-minute question and answer, and YouTube erased it. So I think they decided that they knew more about what you and I want to hear. And I am a certified sexuality counselor as well as sex educator, helping people for over 20 years. So I try to keep things educational, and if it continues to happen that my videos get taken off, I will go over to DLive and do some videos there, as well as I've been uploading to Rumble and BitChute, just to keep you on the up and up with things that are going on. So I'll give it a minute or two for some more of you to join in. And when you do, I always like to know where people are tuning in from, which state, which country. So if you can just give me a shout out on that, that would be great. After I go over some of the questions that you've sent me, I'm going to answer your questions today. Now, one of the points I wanted to make is when you're sending me a question that you want to be answered on the show, put show on it so that I know it's going to, be answered for the show, and it is for the show. Otherwise, if you want to do a private message where I answer it, I do charge a small fee to answer those questions, as it helps with the videos, and I do get a ton of questions a day. And so I'm not able to answer all of them. I do my best to try to answer some of them here for you, especially when a couple of you are asking the same questions. So I like to go ahead and do that. So we have a few of you that are coming on today. So John, you're from PA, and James says hello. So great to see you on here again. I see some of you that are consistently joining the program, which is great, because that's what makes it fun, is if we can have these open conversations about sexuality. There's not a lot of places to get real factual information that doesn't have either a biased lean or is part of an agenda. So I try to cut through all of that and just give you the facts, as well as my experience with working with people for so many years. John asked, to get a lot of pervs. You know, it's interesting because sometimes some of the questions that people ask, you have to read through the lines to see if they really are having an issue with it and they're not wording it properly. But over the years, I've gotten all kinds of interesting questions just about all topics. You'd be surprised the information that I receive and the questions people asked. I'm not surprised anymore because, I've heard so many different things over the years. I don't judge people. Sometimes people really do have problems that may seem a little out there to other people, but if they truly are suffering from it, then I want to help them to figure out what the problem is. And the reality is, a lot of people, they think that sexuality defines them. And this is something that has been going on in society now for a while. And I have to tell you, sexuality does not define who you are as a person. So if you have a particular fetish or a sexual problem, that is not That does not define you. And people get really stuck on that, and it screws with their brain. And the basic thing is, when they ask me questions that they have sexual problems, to them, it is the biggest problem in the world, and they may find it even bizarre to them what it is. But in reality, if you break it down, any sexual problem, it's rooted in basically the same things. And that's something that I can talk about a little more with you. So it's not always what people think. Oh, we have someone from Africa on today. And John Eaton says, I completely agree. We're more than the sum of our parts. Absolutely. Jovan came on. Yay. I finally caught Dr. Michael live. Well, I'm happy that you're here. I tried to put out information so that people could, come back on at this time, and I'm going to try to be consistent with the day and time I do it so more of you can join. So let me answer the two questions that I'm going to today and get into the topic, and then I will go ahead and answer some of your questions. So you may want to write them down. And the one thing is, if you can answer a question without putting any, body parts in, because I think YouTube is monitoring everything I say now. We'll just try to call them sexual organs if you can come up with a different name, because, the normal biological name now we're not allowed to say for male organs and female organs, I think. Okay, let me move forward with the questions. Okay, so the first question I got is, I am a masculine man in control at work and out and about making decisions. Yet when it comes to having sex, I am submissive. And they wanted to know if this is normal, if this happens with other men. And I always get the question normal, and there really is no quote unquote normal, because everybody has different ideas of, how they feel and act sexually. Not identifying, but sexual acts. And most of what I'm talking about is a sexual act. So if you feel submissive, it means that you want to be submissive in a sexual act. But it doesn't mean you're necessarily submissive. So that's the difference about really defining yourself and labeling yourself, which oftentimes people do, and they don't have to do that. So what happens in this situation and with this particular question is, a man may be masculine all day and feel that he is controlling things, or maybe he's in a very high-powered position and he has a lot of responsibility. So when it comes to having sex, he may not want to have any responsibility with that. He may want to have his wife or his girlfriend telling him what to do or controlling him, because that's not necessarily the norm. And if you think about it, I've said this in other videos, there's nothing wrong with taking turns. So I don't think one person should always be in charge of, asking to have sex, deciding what kind of sex you're going to have, what kind of position you're going to be in. It's really about two people that are equally enjoying the sexual encounter and are equally taking the action to make it better or make it interesting or make it happen. And so if a man decides that he wants to be in a submissive position sometimes, then that's fine. There is no judgment around that. Now, if it becomes that he wants to be submissive all the time, and he wants his wife to tell him what to do and be in charge all the time, then that might get boring for her. So I think you have to change it up, and I don't think you should be so judgmental on that part of it. But now I'm going to get into a different aspect of it. And this is another question that I have. And it's from women and men. I've gotten asked this question. So, do women still like masculine men? And I will tell you right now that there is an assault on masculinity. And if you think back to even 10 years ago, if you watch a commercial and they're out today, but even 10 years ago, they were portraying men as being stupid. I mean, if you really watch them, a lot of the commercials show men as being stupid, them not being very masculine, not knowing how to even screw in a light bulb. Maybe they're taking care of the children all day and the wife is off working or taking, the baby out in the stroller, which is fine if she's working. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that these commercials are not portraying men in masculine positions. I mean, when's the last time that you actually saw a commercial that showed a man in a masculine traditional situation? Or even if you're watching programs on TV, oftentimes it'll show men in more of a demasculized role. And the women are the ones that are now becoming the superheroes. And so getting back to the question, yes, women do still like masculine men. And this goes back to biology. And we can't forget biology, because the idea of masculinity for a woman is that when she has children, she knows that her husband's going to keep her safe. He's going to put food on the table. And those are all still basic things when we go back to biology, but they're being corrupted right now. And so it's causing confusion in society. And in many respects, we need to always fall back on the biology of men and women and the fact that we are different. We think differently, and that's okay because we complement each other, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that was, those were two of the questions that I got that I wanted to go through. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but right now I will look to see what some of your questions are, and then I will go from there. So let's see. So Eric says the media hates masculinity. And I would agree with that. I mean, if you really think about how things are being portrayed in the media, advertising, not just commercials, but if you look like a billboard, oftentimes the men will be in a feminized position. And even the women, let's talk about the assault on femininity. So even women are not being portrayed in a feminine position. Sometimes they are looking like you don't know what sex they are. And so men, visually and biologically, they like curves on a woman. Why do they like curves on a woman? Because from a biological standpoint, if she's curvy and she's got larger hips, then she is able to bear children. And you can't take that biological attraction away from men. It's just something that's visually there. And so with a lot of the models or the women, they're trying to take the curves away. They're trying to take away the feminine features and confuse both men and women about the differences. And the differences are beautiful. Again, they complement each other. So let me go back to this question. So Jovan says, I wonder what race this person is. It seems to me that society is pushing Black men to be overly hyper masculine, not good, while pushing white and even Asian males to be more compliant and submissive. I would absolutely agree with that. I do think that that is going on right now. And what happens is it's dividing people by the color of their skin. And in reality, we all bleed the same red blood. So I think we are more alike than we are different. And I don't think it's good to push these stereotypes, because what happens in the end is it makes people look at each other not for who they are, but judging them for the color of their skin, the variance in color. So I do think that they are definitely pushing that in the media, and I don't think it's healthy. And I think people are beginning to recognize this, and I think that's a good thing if they start recognizing it so that they can begin to fix it. And the reality is we don't have to listen to what the media says. And once we're aware of what they're doing, we can see it even clearer. So keep that in mind, because it really does come back to relationships, and it comes back to sexuality, and it comes back to your sex life. And if you are so worried about these things when it comes to impressing a woman or having sex with your wife or your spouse, then you take the enjoyment out of it if it's in your head. And that also causes a certain amount of sexual anxiety for men too. It can create performance anxiety. It can make them feel bad about themselves. If you notice in pornography, all the men are well endowed. Well, they do that on purpose. And so, men, that your regular man is not going to be well endowed because they pick these actors because of their male parts. And so sometimes men end up having a complex over this. And that's not healthy, because it really takes away from them enjoying the sexual experience. And one thing that I wanted to say, that somebody asked a question a while back, and that was about, is it okay not to have sex before marriage? And one thing I will say is that many marriages where you haven't had a lot of sexual exploration before you get married, there is something positive in the fact that you don't, I don't want to say exploit your mind, but that you might have one really amazing sexual experience before you get married. And you may always compare that to your spouse. And that happens with both men and women. And so that's some of the downfall of being very sexual before getting married. I will just put that in there. So I'm not going to put it down either way, but I'm just going to give you information that I have seen. So let me get to some of your questions now, and let me go through here. Eric says, men are portrayed as bumbling idiots and disrespected. I would absolutely agree with that. I think that if people really look at the media, and even, okay, let's talk about major motion pictures. So they used to have men in the roles of women, men would be the superheroes. And now, okay, it's okay for women to be superheroes once in a while, but it seems that in every single movie, they're now the main character, the main superhero, and the man is the little, bumbling idiot sideshow. And I will say, for women, going to the movies and actually seeing men as the superheroes and masculine, they like that. It's like, I won't say a turn on for them, but they actually like that. And men like that too. So why are they pushing the women being these so-called masculine superheroes? I just think that there's something out there that they're pushing that is not really what people feel or really what people want. But you can kind of debate that yourself or ask that question on here yourself. So let me try to go through some more of these questions here. We have someone from Sri Lanka. Wonderful. This is interesting. John Eaton said, did you know that millennial women are choosing to stay home more than the last 2 generations? Maybe the pendulum is swinging. Sometimes that happens. And I will say, not to get too political, but I do have to say this: with women fought for years in the workplace to have separate bathrooms, right, from men. And look at what's happening now with the transgender or transsexual. is now they no longer are having their bathrooms to themselves, because anyone can now dress up and walk into a woman's bathroom. And this is something that they fought for so long. And it's kind of just gone down the tubes. So I think femininity is really, there is an assault on femininity too right now. So that's for another discussion, but I just wanted to bring that topic up. Okay, so what else do we have here? John said, but those movies don't make money, get woke or go broke. Yeah, that is happening. Absolutely. There's a lot of those movies that are not making money because. So Amar says, in our country, the submissive men are very frowned upon. You know, it's interesting because right now in China, they are going against homosexuality. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a sip of my water. And they're really just assaulting people who are homosexual, and which is awful. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's terrible. I don't think that anybody should go after anybody for their sexual preference. If somebody wants to be feminine, if they want to be submissive, if they want to dress up, I think that they should be allowed to do that. I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. I have a problem with it pushing it on other people. I don't think it's right that you push this on other people and make them the ones who have to go out of their way and accept it. I think that if somebody wants to be transition into a different gender, if a man wants to be feminine or a woman wants to be masculine, I don't have a problem with that. I think everybody should be allowed to be what they want to be an individual. And I don't think anybody should be mean to them or make fun of them. But on the same hand, I don't think it should be pushed on people. I don't think that's right. I don't think any of this should be forced on anyone else. And I see that's what's happening in society, and it's a very big problem. And it's also confusing our youth. Something that was brought to my attention, which really was very shocking to me, is in high school right now, there is a big push for same-sex relationships, for girls holding hands, for guys holding hands. And instead of just letting it be whatever it may be, they're pushing it and congratulating it and awarding it. And so sometimes, teenagers are confused. It's normal. They go through some type of confusion. Then they go on to college, and what's happening if they become very confused about their sexuality, and this is women right now, I'm not sure what's happening men, they may go to a counselor, and the counselor may be telling them to get on hormone blockers instead of giving them counseling. And if they go on hormone blockers, then for women, if you're giving them testosterone, all of a sudden they're feeling good for the moment, and then it may change how they feel about certain things, because hormones are extremely powerful. So whether you're giving someone hormones or giving them hormone blockers or giving women more testosterone, it's going to change the way they think. People forget that hormones affect the way a person thinks. It's not just your body, but it's how you feel about things. It's about your arousal. And so this is something that we need to talk about, because there's some strange things going on in society that people are not aware of. And it also affects them sexually. So in some of my other videos, I talk about the difference of arousal. Arousal is very different than how you identify yourself. So you can be aroused by many things. So if you're exposed to something, And it's set up in a situation, which porn often is. So they make it arousing, something you normally wouldn't be aroused by if you hadn't seen it on porn. And then if it's a same sex situation, and I've had this conversation with many men, is if they are turned on by the male genitals in a same sex situation, sometimes they will feel that they are gay because of that. That's not true. That's a sexual act. And so that's where we really need to talk about and have a real honest conversation about this, that you're being exposed to something you normally wouldn't see. There's an aspect of it that turned you on, and then some people think about that. And the more that they think about it, the more energy they put into it. And then they think, oh gosh, maybe I really am turned on by this, So what's the next step? Well, people go out and they try it. Okay. And then that leads them to either, it could be a dangerous situation. It could be something that creates more confusion where they may not have felt that in the first place. And so who do you talk to about that? Because most of the information out there just to try it, just to do it, just to experiment, and not to think about it. And it can really mess somebody's life up. It could really mess up the way that they think. And it can mess up a relationship. Let's say that you're in a monogamous heterosexual relationship, and maybe you're a guy and you're watching all of this extreme porn. And I can tell you that this happens more than you think, because I work with people in these situations. So you're a guy, you're watching all this extreme porn, and it's extreme. There is some stuff out there that is very, very extreme, and it's not something you would normally see. But yet, your wife, she's not watching any of this. She has no concept of it. And so all of a sudden now you're getting turned on by something that you normally wouldn't be turned on by. And maybe you're now confused and you're even questioning your sexuality. And what does society tell you to do? They tell you, that's okay. You need to go out and try it. You need to explore your sexuality and go out and try it and see if it's something that you really like. And then maybe he does go out and try it and explore it. And now he's exposed himself even further to things that he normally wouldn't do. And so now him and his wife sexually are so far apart in what they like, because he's added on maybe a new kink or been exposed to something. And it's like a new exciting toy, right? Because when you try different things sexually, sometimes it can be exciting. It spikes your adrenaline, it arouses you, brings up your dopamine. And so now you get caught in this very sometimes treacherous situation where if you hadn't been watching the porn, or you hadn't turned to the extreme porn, and then you hadn't decided to go out and try it, you never would have gotten yourself in this situation to begin with. So I think that people really need to weigh the consequences with this stuff. And if this is something you have done and you are struggling with, then you need to be responsible for your actions and understand that maybe you pushed it too far, and maybe it's something that you may need to get some help for, and something that you may want to stop. Because think about it, you're in a marriage, maybe sex gets a little boring, because it does here and there. So instead of working on ways to make it exciting, you turn to porn and you start viewing all different kinds of things, and you really end up going off in a different direction. And so it starts to affect your life, and it starts to affect your marriage. And now you have really gotten yourself in a bad situation. And so you have to be responsible for your actions. And sometimes men, they get so caught up in it that then they turn to their spouse and they have this expectation that their spouse should be interested in it, when quite frankly, she probably has never been exposed to it, and maybe it's something that would even freak her out. So you have to be careful with the situation, and again, be responsible. So I'd say watch porn responsibly, you know, and sometimes people don't do that. I'm not ditching porn. Some people watch it and it doesn't affect them in a negative way. But if you have a problem with it, then you really have to do something about it. Although the porn nowadays, it's not that people are just watching, basic men and women having sex. They're veering off into all kinds of different porn. And if you watch porn, you know what I'm talking about. There's some stuff out there that's quite violent and not something that you would normally see. Okay, so let me stop here for a second and try to take some of your questions, see if some of them are standing out here. Let's see. So Jovan says they have a new Megan, I'm not going to say that, video which uses TS models along with camera tricks and dim lighting to confuse and arouse young males. That is a great question, because with technology and with psychology, and trust me, they are combining these two together, where they can make a man aroused with certain sexual situations, lure them into the sexual situation, and then expose male parts in there, which creates so much confusion. And I have men ask me about that. And so you really have to be careful what you're consuming and be aware that there is a psychological component, because they want you to come back and watch their videos. They want you to pay for it. It's hugely profitable. And so you have to really be aware of what you're watching. And if one of the things is, if you watch porn and then you feel bad about it afterwards, trust your instincts. Know that there's something that you're viewing that is not making you feel good afterwards. It's something that in the pit of your stomach, you feel like, I don't feel good after watching this. So trust your instincts in that way, and don't go back and watch it again, because a lot of this stuff is very manipulated and very advanced. And we're even talking about artificial intelligence sometimes, which tracks the way that you are responding. And so I'm just saying, just be cautious as to what you're viewing. And if you have that gut feeling that something's wrong, then stick with that. Okay, let me see what else we have here. James said the roles are being flipped. Look at the government official under Biden who's transgender. It is in the news and TV and all over other media transmission. Yes, they do push the information out there. And, years ago when I used to help people that were confused and were thinking of transitioning into what was called transsexuality. So they're transsexual, they're transitioning from one sex to another. They did not want to be in the spotlight. It was something private. It wasn't something that they wanted everybody to see. And so I think this is just being pushed out there artificially. And I'm not sure about that person, their background, or who you're talking about exactly, but I do think things are being pushed out in front of us. And if you feel uncomfortable about it, you are made to be the bad person. You know, you are made to be out as someone who is wrong for feeling that way. And that again is not right. We should all be able to feel a certain way and not be punished for it. And so I think that's some of what's going on. So let's see. So Jovan says, I definitely feel that's the case with the cuckold and sissy fetish you see in adult movies. As a personal trainer, I've had clients offer to pay me to seduce their wives. You know, that could be true. You know, I think that definitely takes place, and it's just something to be aware of. And they definitely are pushing some of that. And you know what? The last video I was talking about that got erased is crossing the line, because I was talking about cuckold and fantasy and reality. And, you know, it's one thing to keep it in a fantasy. It's another thing to cross the line into reality and not really weighing the consequences on your marriage. And again, it is a male-driven spouse, probably doesn't know all that much about it. And for her, it's not normalized, and pushing her into a situation where she is involved with another man besides her husband, there are elements to it that can create an unsafe feeling for women. And that's one of the things that women love about marriage and monogamy, is that they are able to share their body with their spouse, not worry about sexually transmitted diseases, not worried about being hurt, feeling the emotional connection. And if you're bringing someone else into your marriage, then you're losing the intimacy that the two of you have and that emotional connection. And again, many times women will find that emotional connection in another man. And that's where the danger sets in when it comes to opening up your marriage, cuckold relationship, threesome. So people just need to be aware of that aspect of it. Hello, Tassos. Nice to see you back here again. Says hello to everyone. Let's see what we have here. I don't know, John, you asked a question about cuckolding, and let's see. In your experience with cuckolding, how often do women choose the bull? Is it emotional or physical? Well, okay, so let's go back to what I was just saying about women connecting with men on an emotional level. So men have the ability to tune out that emotional connection much easier than women do. And women become emotionally connected to their sexual partner. And for some women, they can't have a sexual experience without that emotional connection. And I'm not saying that with men too. You know, there are men, especially as men age, they want the emotional connection with their wife. They want that intimacy. They want her to look at him and be attracted to him, to love him, to nurture him, to want him. Men want that very much with their wives. And women want the same thing. They want that emotional connection, to know that her husband loves her, that she's safe with him, that they're sharing something that is intimate between the two of them and sacred in many instances. And so the thing with the cuckolding is you are really challenging biology in many ways. And so when you are setting up a situation where she's going to be sleeping with another man besides her husband, she is going to emotionally connect with that man. And the more that she has contact with him, and the more that the three of you are intimate per se, or she's intimate with him by herself, which is even more of a danger, is that she will eventually emotionally connect to him. And the other problem is this is another thing that men don't think about with the cuckold relationship. So you have your marriage, and you have work, and you have, children, and you have all these responsibilities in a marriage that the two of you are having on a daily basis. And so finances, and you share all of that together. And then you decide to bring in another person. And so with that other person, she doesn't have all of those other responsibilities and all of those other things. And for her, it can get twisted in her mind that, oh, this is just easy. It's like, with this person, I don't have any of these responsibilities, and I like it. And now I just want to be with him and not be put in the responsible situation anymore with my family. I've seen that happen many times too. So you have to be careful, because it's not a real situation. It's not a reality situation. And women oftentimes, when they're younger, or they're teenagers, or they're in their early 20s, they still dream about getting married and having children, and having the family, and the dogs or the cats, building a life together with their spouse. And so that's very much a part of what they fantasize about and what they think about. And then along the way, maybe your sex life gets boring, or maybe the husband's had some secret fetish all along, and he inserts that into the marriage. He inserts that into the sexual relationship. And she may go along with it because she doesn't want to interrupt her family. So she may go along with it. Or maybe when you're men oftentimes think that's a ticket to her trying it in real life, which oftentimes it's not. They'll just interpret that as, oh yeah, she's really excited about it in bed, so she really wants to do it. Or no, she's kind of just playing around and maybe having fun. That doesn't mean that she wants to take it to the next level. So you have to really be cognizant about this if you're putting this onto your spouse, or you're thinking that she thinks the same way you do. That's been my experience with many couples. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So CH7V3 said, I think the whole point of a cuckold threesome scenario for the man is the angst felt by seeing the woman possibly emotionally connect with the other guy, as long as it doesn't go too far danger. Yeah, but how do you control that? I mean, the reality is maybe there's a point about it, but I hear from most men in these situations, it's not so much about the emotional connection with the guy. It's about that they have control over her sexual pleasure. The emotional connection, they actually start getting fearful if they see that she is emotionally connecting, because they want to still be the quote unquote, only guy that she loves. So I don't see that as much, but I do see that as a very dangerous situation, because how do you control how somebody feels? So she a little bit emotionally connects with him. It doesn't work that way. Usually women, in order for them to be intimate, especially with a guy several times, they're going to emotionally connect. That's just biology again. You're talking about men and women. So, In any type of sexual situation, it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual intercourse. It could be any type of intimate connection where she may emotionally get involved. And again, the more often that she sees the person, the likelihood is it's going to happen more, it's more prevalent. So anyway, I wanted to come on today and answer some of your questions. I'm going to be coming back every Tuesday at this time, and you can send me a question through my website, thehappyspouse.com. If you want to ask a personal question, there is a small fee, and you can, what you do is you ask the question and you pay the fee, or you pay the fee, ask the question, and then I will answer it within 24 to 48 hours. If it's something that you want me to go over on the show, put show on the top of the box to show that you want this to be asked on the show, and I will go ahead and go through some of your emails and pick some of them out that are interesting. And for those of you who are sending me emails, I've gotten some great emails. And again, if for some reason YouTube is taking down my videos because someone just decided to do it, I will start going on DLive, Rumble, and BitChute. So you can find me there. And I am also on Gab. If you want to join me on Gab, I put interesting stuff up there as well. And my handle is Sex Counseling, as it is on Twitter too. So I really hope that you enjoyed this show. Please share it with others, give me a thumbs up, and leave your comment. And of course, subscribe to my channel so you know when I'm on live next. As you know, I believe all of you deserve to have a healthy sex life. All right, make it a great day. Bye-bye.